So find out what the hell I was doing the other day, walking around in the woods with a handful of cameras, hanging these cameras from trees, and then walking back and forth underneath them. It's a cinematic project that I was wanting to illustrate and do some more experimenting with. Some things that I missed out on my hike the other day. But stay tuned and I will explain what the heck I'm doing here. Was going to do some demos with some tripods and hanging mounts from trees. I called it cinematography, but I wound up just hiking through the woods for an hour, and I didn't do any cinematography, but I'm going to do that today. And I've talked about this tripod before, this tripod selfie stick. I love this thing. I did a review a couple of weeks back. I talked about this one briefly. I like this one. This is my new favorite. And this old worn out piece of crap Joby, very expensive Gorilla Pod, doesn't work worth a crap after a few months. After a year of using this thing, it's worthless. So this is a step up, but it's a little bit harder to bend. But anyway, I'm also going to do something with this. I walked off and forgot my little twisty tie thing, so I'm just going to hang this from an overhead something and kind of show you what that's all about. But anyway, that's what we're doing today. A little bit of cinematography, doing what I always call drive-bys. And I call them drive-bys because most of the time I am driving by or riding by on my motorcycle. And it just gives a little bit more of a cinematic feel. In other words, it's kind of like having a camera crew. 90% of the riding I ever do is by myself, so I do drive-bys, ride-bys to spice things up and make it a little bit more cinematic and give you some perspective. I've talked about this with a few people that shoot YouTube, and one of the things that most YouTubers fail to do is do anything off of the bike. They put their helmets on their, or put their cameras on their helmet and ride and ride and ride. Sometimes they talk into the camera, or do like I do, talk after the fact and do some voiceovers. Oh, that's interesting, but to kind of break it up, it's just, some of the stuff I've watched is just kind of hard to watch just because it's riding. But I love anybody that takes the time to put something extra out there. And by extra, I mean anything other than a helmet-mounted camera. So if you're going to take the time to mount a camera somewhere that you're riding by or walking by or flying by or anything, I just really enjoy that. And I've mentioned several times that the people, when I see it, I always try to give people some props because I know how hard it is to do. And I'm about to demonstrate for the first time what I'm talking about. I may have covered this before, I just don't remember. Something like this is really easy because you got a mounting place to put this on, but still, you've got to create a scene rather than just riding and riding and riding. I am putting this camera up on this signpost, turn it on, and then I'm gonna walk away, and then I'm gonna pretend like this is the first time I've come through here. But I'm gonna show you a couple things that I do in post-production that allow me to make it even more cinematic. And you can't do this with most, you can't do this technique with most editing software. I use Premiere Pro, and it's pretty spectacular. power-wise, and it's even an old version. I think I've had that thing probably a decade, and it's probably even older than that. But this kind of gives you an idea of what the possibilities are. Like on a motorcycle, it'd be a lot faster to get from way over there to way over here, but it's a lot easier just to drop it on the trail. I'm doing kind of an extreme version because I want to disappear over the hillside. And now, what I would do now is cut from my helmet cam, which skull cam, and I would just come up over the rise here, walking or whatever I'm doing. I could cut all this out and make it much more cinematic. And I just walk towards the camera and walk past the camera like I don't even know it's there. I mean, they do this stuff in the movies. The difference is, in the movies, you got a camera crew, so it doesn't seem so stupid. It certainly doesn't feel as stupid. And this cinematic thing takes a lot of effort. I mean, if you think about it, if I was just out here in the woods going for a hike, why in the hell would I want to stop and do something silly like this, right? And, you know, I'm going to add something in post to show you what I'm talking about. This camera is not going to be that good because it's mostly a wide angle camera. But now, typically what I do is I reset the camera. And now I'm going to pretend I'm going to edit these two pieces together and act like I just walked through the woods and I had two cameras or a camera crew or something like that, you know, to make it more cinematic. And I'm talking cinematography like this is some big epic thing. Okay, it's not. But if you added this little piece right here to spice up your loop, say you got a 10-minute riding video, 10-minute hiking video, and you add this to it, you got 30 seconds that break this thing up, which is pretty awesome, and it makes it more interesting. And I don't care who you are, I would say everybody needs to try this at least once. Doing your daily thing. Some people use drones. Breaking up your motorcycle ride or your hike with a selfie stick. You know, if you're changing things up, if you're hiking with a selfie stick like I did the other day, maybe not so much. But now I'm going to do the opposite thing. I'm going to pretend that I'm still walking. Well, I am still walking, but now since I got this overhanging thing here, I'm just gonna see if I can get this thing going here. And this time when I walk through, I'm just gonna twist that around and catch me going up the other way. And I'm gonna leave the rest of my crap here since I'm gonna come back. But same thing, I mean, it's effort, takes effort. But this technique can be really fun if you think about it. And you can play around with it, but I guess I've been doing this so long, it just seems kind of like a natural thing to me. Seems like a natural thing just to make these cinematic breaks to give you some perspective and not just pretend like well, you're actually not. This is pretending. And like I said, I just walked past the camera. So now what I would typically do is just turn the camera around and get me walking up that way. And that's what I'm going to do. So I would just cut it right there and pretend it was all one cut. And there was a camera crew standing there, which is kind of silly. Huh? But, so what I'm trying to do is make things more interesting for your viewers, make things more interesting for you. If you do throw some things like this in here that, to me, they make filming much more interesting. Anybody can click a helmet onto the side of their head and, you know, click a cord and go ride down the road. I think it takes a lot more effort if you're blogging into a camera. I think it takes a lot more effort, ingenuity, creativity, and just being an interesting personality, which I struggle with, which is why I've never done it. Well, not just that, I tend to drone on about topics. Man, this is a steep trail. But that's why I've never really gotten into the whole blogging thing, specifically because I don't think I'm that interesting, really. Now I'm going to try something I haven't tried in a while. It's going to be more difficult with this setup. Specifically, I don't have my twisty stick, so, but this should get us close. It's not really a good shot coming up this hill. Why don't we do this? Let me walk. So with something like this, you can be a little bit creative. I had to get out of the house today because I am so tired of sitting on my butt. I've been working since 7 o'clock this morning, and it's killing me physically and mentally. So I had to get out. So here we are. All right. Yeah, this is not working as well as I'd hoped. All right. So, again, this is one of those situations where I'm hanging this camera upside down, which means I'm going to have to flip this in post. But, same idea. And a lot of times, I cheat. When I'm on longer rides, I will cheat and use the same footage twice. I call it cheating because, I don't know, it's I will use this out and back. If I'm coming into a trail and the trail's that way, I will use the walking back to get the camera footage to show that I'm going into the trail. Like I'll see some scenic, nice, you know, valley or ridge or mountaintop or some big thing that I'm passing by, and I will drop the camera on the way into the trail or the way out. It doesn't matter. Nobody's going to know. And I call it cheating because you're basically using the same shot. It's not the same shot. You got me coming into the trail here, and then you got me leaving. So I'll put the coming into the trail on the front of the clip, and I'll put the leaving on the end, and I think it kind of works. But not just that, you have to drop the camera a whole lot less, which is good. I mean, if there's enough scenic stuff, I can remember, I think one of my videos, I think I dropped the camera 4 or 5 times. And it was I think it turned out to be a pretty good video. But it was very scenic. that was the thing that really struck me is, man, I'm driving up this hill. I'll drive up the hill and I turn around and go, oh yeah, I need to get a shot of this. I'll drop a camera. Most of the time when I'm riding, I have a small light tripod that I use. And that is what I did. I dropped the tripod at the top of the hill, rode back down all the way to the bottom, turn around, blasted ass up, and then turned around again and went down the trail. And I do that a lot. Sometimes you got to go back up the trail. If you're going down the hill and coming back up, sometimes I go further up the hill before I go down. Turn around, come back down. It's a lot of effort, but you would be surprised at what kind of an effect you get. You put two exact same videos side by side, and this is a pretty good example of me walking around blah 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 with this thing on my head, or in reverse, a selfie stick, and you know, got the selfie stick hung out here, blah 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 blah. I'm so interesting and entertaining and blah blah blah. Well, maybe you're marginally entertaining like I am, but you could spice it up if you just drop this thing on the edge of a trail as you're walking through. I did a walk by the other day, but I didn't talk a lot about it, and I didn't use this other gear that I brought, so that's what today was all about, is walking and talking. I'm going to do one more, just in case you didn't see that video I made the other day, and I'm going to do it with my phone. Well, let's see, I'm going to do it with my phone. Yeah, I'm going to do it with my phone. But I'm going to do it with my phone because I have this awesome selfie stick tripod. And, you know, of course I could not do this without my selfie stick tripod or something. I could do it with a tripod, a regular tripod, as long as I had a mount like this, a phone mount. And I've got several of these phone mounts that I pulled off of other devices. But now I'm just going to clamp this thing in, and I'm going to lower it down so it's easier to, the further up you have the selfie stick, the more unstable it is, especially if you're not on flat ground. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to find flat ground here, but I'm going to turn. Well, these gloves do not, I guess they're not holding current. So hope that didn't turn my phone off. Or am I still recording? I can't see. Yes, still recording. So what I'm going to do now is just put this thing on the ground, tilt it so I like the picture. And I'm gonna capture myself coming out here. I'm just gonna go down the trail, come back up, no biggie. But something like this, you know, is pretty doggone easy to do. You just tilt the camera the right way. And then, you know, just walk down the trail. And, you know, act like you are, I get oxygen into my brain and I start acting like I'm high. I start hiking, and all of a sudden, all that rush of oxygen, I start acting like I'm drunk or stoned or something, which is a really bad thing. Don't do drugs, kids. Don't do drugs, kids. I don't know how much more I can say other than that. But, I mean, I think a lot of people are going to poo-poo this until they realize that stuff like this adds so much, it adds so much to your, I don't want to say drama, but it adds something to your footage. And if you're telling a story, I think that's important. And really, isn't that what all this is about? Isn't this about telling your story? Isn't that what's important? I mean, otherwise, this thing's gonna fall out of my camera. So, I guess what I'm trying to say is tell your story. Whether it's with a selfie stick, an action cam, gorilla pod, tell your story. And the more interesting the story is, if you're like me, you don't really have interesting stories, you just have you have scenery. Make the scenery more important. Make your environment more important. That's what I'm trying to emphasize here. Especially if you don't have a great story like I don't have a great story. So I just try to make things nice and interesting. I try to make the scenery interesting. And that's what I'm trying to tell you. A little tip that I have found. I don't know. As far as I know, I'm the only person on planet Earth that's ever commented on the drive-bys, but I love them. I really appreciate them when I see them for a couple of things. It makes it more interesting. Just like getting off your bike, getting off your bicycle, getting off of, if you're running down the road with a camera on your helmet or your bike or whatever, you get off and you go, here I am, I'm at the boat landing, I've been riding all day to get here. It just makes it more interesting to pull this stick out and put your camera on it. Stick it way away from your face so you can see the scenery behind you. If you're walking around with a camera on a stick, I would say the only other thing that you can do is maybe put the stick down on the ground, put it on a gorilla pod, tripod, something, walk by the camera. It's not that hard. And once you start doing it, I guarantee you, well, if you're recording more than 10, 15 videos a year, you're doing more than most people. But if you're not, it will make it more interesting, hopefully, for you. I don't want to guarantee anybody anything, but I would hope it would be more interesting. That's it. Oh yeah, I'm recording. So I'm gonna use that footage too. Should add a third camera. Well, that's gonna be a fourth camera. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 cameras. Somebody the other day was giving me a hard time about I think it was one of my, I was talking about minimal motorcycle camping, and somebody was talking about, well, hey, I got 3 cameras and blah blah blah. Well, one's enough. Well, yeah, one's enough. One is always in your pocket, but is it the right camera? I don't spend a lot of money on my camera equipment. Actually, I'm leaning towards the cheap end. Some people spend thousands of dollars. I'm not that guy. I don't want to cheap out on equipment. In other words, I don't want to save $50 and get $50 less in image quality for the rest of the life of the camera. But a lot of times it's, there's little, if any, difference in quality of image, or at least quality of image that people that watch YouTube can see. I mean, I use much better cameras when I do commercial stuff, but people are paying me for that. So, and they may want to put that on a big screen and run it, and then all of a sudden you see flaws. But most people that I shoot for, can't even tell. So, and it depends on the shot. You know, I was shooting in, I was shooting video in, at a powder coater. One of my customers is a powder coater, and he was blasting a metal frame to a car with high speed, high pressure sand blasting. He's taking all the crap off this car. And, you know, I had to stick one of these. I think I spent $200 for this brand new. So that makes this maybe a $50, $80 camera at best. But it was a camera that I could stick in the place where it was and not have to worry about it. So it's something that I could not lose sleep about losing a $3,000 camera. Because even if the thing was ruined by sand, or fell over, or the lens broke, or whatever, you know, I easily paid for it by getting the footage. So anyway, I guess I'm done talking. Enjoy the footage. Hey, thanks for watching my video. If you enjoyed it, please consider subscribing. Hit that subscribe button and share the video with your friends. You know you want to. Go ahead. Hit subscribe. Hit those share buttons.